Hey, welcome back guys to Intermediate JavaScript and jQuery programming with JSON and Ajax. My name is Kaustubh Garge, but you can call me KG. I will be covering session 5 of Intermediate JavaScript course today. Before we begin, let's look at the session outline. So in this session, we'll be covering what events are and how they can be used in the jQuery. We'll also learn how to manage events. If you do not have fundamentals of JavaScript programming clear, then you must take the Introduction to JavaScript course as well as HTML course to understand the document object model. So what are events? Events are actions or occurrences that happen in the system when you're programming and the system tells you about it. So for example, let's consider you're checking out on Amazon and you have filled in your card details, and when you check out and when you select pay now, what happens within the system is an event is raised. That means the form has been submitted by the user, and based on that event, the system has to do or has to perform a certain number of steps. Okay, so this is how events are used. So using the events in a jQuery way, in the jQuery, it's somewhat similar to what we have been doing in JavaScript. So consider this example for a while. So we have a paragraph tag that has been selected, and we have attached a click event to all the paragraphs on the page. So that means whenever user clicks on any of the paragraphs that are on the page, a click event will be raised. Okay, so we already understand what an event is, but we have to understand how one event is fired. So whenever something interesting occurs on the page, an event is fired, meaning that the browser basically announces that something has happened. So in this announcement, we as developers have to listen to certain events and react to them appropriately. So remember when I gave an example of checkout form on Amazon? So that's not just one of the events. I mean, that's not the only event, but we can have more events. So like, for example, when the user uses their mouse cursor to hover over some element, or they use their keyboard to enter in the keystrokes, those events are captured as well. We can also define our custom elements in jQuery. So let's dive a bit deeper into the jQuery event concepts. So the document.ready allows us to execute a function when the method is fully loaded. So let's go back to the code and let's assume for a moment that, oops, my mistake. Let me save this. All right, let me clear this out. Okay, so let's assume that we have this HTML page as well as JavaScript, but let's assume that this page load takes time. Okay, it's a big file and the loading takes time, or we have some network issues. What would happen if we would have to access this paragraph element? What would happen in this case if the HTML page itself is not loaded and the jQuery fires the function where it tries to select the element with an ID of my paragraph? Since the HTML page hasn't been loaded, we actually will face a problem where it says that I couldn't find, the jQuery will say that I couldn't find the ID of my paragraph, right? So to avoid that, we use document.ready function, and we look for the event that the document has been loaded. So once the document has been loaded, we can perform the rest of the operations. Okay, so it's just a fail-safe mechanism to make sure that the HTML page is fully loaded before we start operating on it. So one of the most common is the click event handler, right? Click event method, in which when the user clicks on a particular HTML element, a function or a event handler is raised. So if we look at in here, and if I uncomment this, oops. All right, so let me move this right inside here. And let me comment these out. These we will cover these in the next slide. So in here, let's say if the paragraph is clicked and we have to log in that event. So let's click on this. Okay, there's some mistake here. Let me quickly check this. So I think it was a problem with my with my JS fiddle. So let me quickly uncomment this. All right, and let me comment this out. And let me save this. And let me click on the paragraph and see if the event is logged. Okay, so the event is logged in here perfectly. Okay, so what is happening is I've selected the element with an ID of my paragraph and attached a click event, and attached the event handler for it. And once it clicks, it logs the event. So double click acts in a similar way, but instead of just single clicking, we capture the event when the user double clicks on the HTML element, and we perform certain tasks on it. We'll dive a bit deeper into the advanced event management. So one of the ways is to figure out if the user's cursor is moving along, right? Or if they have entered a keystroke on their keyboard. So let's look at the mouse over event. So let me uncomment this. So mouse over event is like if let me comment this out. We'll discuss that later. Okay. Make some space here. Okay. So the mouse over event is once the cursor is moved over an element. So in this case, the element is my paragraph. So we already have a hello world paragraph right here. And if I move the mouse over, oops. Okay, let me run this again. All right. So if I move the mouse over, it logs. Okay. The same way, if I move it away, if I were to move it away, I would have to use the mouse leave function or the mouse leave event. You have to listen for the mouse leave event. And we have mouse over. Release it. I have to save it every time I mistake. I'm sorry. All right. Let me clear this. All right. So we have mouse over and we have mouse leave. Okay. So we are listening to these advanced events, and we can also have certain custom events that we can use. So let's dive a bit deeper into the on method. So on method is where we can listen to multiple different events. So in this case, we are selecting all of the paragraph elements, and whenever we listen to the click event on these paragraph, we perform certain tasks. We can attach multiple event listeners onto this on method. All right, so before we jump into recap, let me quickly talk about custom events. So custom events offer a new way of thinking, okay? They put emphasis on the target of the behavior, which means, like, let's say if the certain things happen, let's say a class is applied to a text in a paragraph, then we can treat it as a custom event. So like, for example, another example would be, let's say if the user is shown a pop-up, and we can define that as a separate event in itself, and based on that and what the user interacts or how the user interacts on that pop-up, we can perform certain different tasks. Okay, so this is how we can define custom events. We'll actually cover this in detail when we start working on our projects. Okay, so before we end this session, let's quickly look at what we have learned so far. We learned what events are and how jQuery handles them. We also learned about how event management is used in jQuery. From next session onwards, we'll be going a bit advanced and applying whatever we have learned thus far. So I will see you in the next session. Take care.